Welcome back to another weekly wrap-up video. My name is Matt Revel. I'm the Communications Director for the Delaware State Senate Republican Caucus.
Woo!
And I have here again with me Senator Colin Bonini from the 16th Senatorial. Senator, how are you?
Good, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Well, we just got off Easter break.
Right.
First week back.
He has risen.
Break.
He has risen.
Yes,
Thank you
absolutely.
for Easter.
Pretty light schedule for the most part,
Yep.
but on Thursday, Senate Substitute 1 for Senate Bill 11.
Right. Very important piece of legislation.
Why don't you talk about that as a constitutional amendment? Why don't we talk about that?
Okay. So what Senate Substitute 1 to Senate Bill 11, just call it Senate Bill 11 if that's okay. So this is a constitutional amendment, a very important bill. And what it did is it changed the process, or it's beginning to change. It's proposed. As you know, constitutional amendments require 2 consecutive General Assemblies. So this was the first leg. So if it passes the Senate and the House and is signed by the governor, then it would have to pass again next year in the next General Assembly to become to be added into our Constitution. But what it does is it allows for a process for preventative detention of potential criminals. And the bottom line is, as you and I have talked, I think we talked about before, is that as the Democrats, they're in the majority, they have just been incredibly soft on crime. There's just no other way to say that. And what they've done with the bail system over the last several years, I completely disagree with. What New York did, and that gets the headlines, these folks get out on bail and do that, unfortunately has happened in Delaware. But this bill helps address that situation, which I think is a good thing. It was a bipartisan bill. It basically creates a process where the Attorney General, in this case, would be the one bringing the charges, could go to the court and has to meet certain criteria, pretty strict criteria, than saying, hey, this person does not deserve bail because of X, Y, Z. We have this proof, clear and convincing proof and different levels of proof, but we have this proof to say this person is either going to be a danger to the community or is going to be a flight risk, right? Because as you know, bail is set aside so that people come back and go to their court dates or to prevent them from getting out into the community if they're potentially dangerous. So what this does is it allows for those criminals that folks that were, obviously just quite frankly the bad guys who shouldn't get out on the street, it creates a process for that, but it creates a process that takes some work because we don't want the government just being able to simply say you don't get bail, right? Bail is one of our fundamental rights in the Constitution. So this is a pretty stringent process, but it does allow for the prosecutors to go to the judge and say, look, this person, here's the proof, this person should not be out because of A, they're at public safety, or B, that they're a flight risk. So in that sense, it's really a good thing in that we're going to have a cleaner mechanism to keep those bad guys in jail. But at the same time, I also think it's a good bill in that it's created a process where the government really has to prove why they're going to detain you. Because we don't, like I said, especially in the authoritarianism that's happening all over the world, and quite frankly, even in the United States politics, there's a wing of authoritarianism in the parties that just is really concerning. But we certainly don't want just the government to be able to detain you because they say so. So I think it's a good bill. Obviously, I'm concerned about what happened to the bail process here in Delaware, and I'd like to address that at some point. But I think this is a good step in the right direction.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Senator. So House Bill 204, a couple years ago,
right.
You were very critical of that.
Right.
What did that bill do?
So yeah, and what Senate Bill 11 does is has something to do with that, not an exact correlation, but what House Bill 204 did, it's 4 or 5 years ago now, and it basically in my opinion, gutted the bail system here in Delaware. And I just think, as I said on the floor back then, and I said it to anybody who will listen, that it creates victims. We created victims because people who otherwise would have been detained were being released. And we've had numerous cases, and quite frankly, murders and serious crimes from people who, prior to that new process, probably would have been detained and not back out on the street. And what House Bill 204 did was basically make it very difficult to hold people on bail, much more difficult to hold people on bail. And I think it was the wrong thing to do. I think what we did today begins to help fix that process. Right. But I am, quite frankly, worried that in the future, the other side is going to continue to try to do away with our bail system. And our bail system, first of all, Doesn't cost us anything because it's done by folks outside the government, and if we do it, so that's first of all, it'd be a tremendous cost if we do it, and secondly, it's there to help protect the community and also to make sure that folks appear in court, right? And I think if we take away that process, plus, as I mentioned before, we have a constitutional right to bail. So I'm very concerned about where 204 is leading. I think what we did today is a good step back in the right direction.
Well, Senate Bill 11 is definitely a piece of legislation that will keep everyone up to date on. It now goes over to the House, requires a supermajority.
Yep, two-thirds vote.
So, and as you said, two back-to-back General Assemblies.
Yep.
So it's one that we're going to be keeping an eye on
but
for a couple years now.
It's an important piece of legislation, and I think both sides should be. And I handed the Democrats to their credit, worked with us on this, and they did a good job. I think it's a step in the right direction.
Well, moving on to a topic that I know you're very passionate about, that's been in the news really a couple years ago now.
Right.
The reassessment.
Oh boy!
Now,
you see, I'm leaning forward, Matt. I just, I am. If I didn't mean to cut you off, I'm sorry, Matt. But I am. I hope I'm wrong. Let's just put it that way. I don't think I am, but I certainly hope I'm wrong. I think the reassessment is going to be a political firestorm because I think it's going to lead to significantly higher property taxes for everybody. I know that the advocates who are saying, "Oh, we needed to have reassessment because it's unfair for education spending and all these kind of things," whatever. First of all, I disagree with that. I think we're in the top 10 per capita spending on education in the country. But I think there's this. No, I guess I should back up. The court a few years ago, Chancery Court, decided that the counties need to reassess counties and cities need to reassess property values, both residential and business, because without the reassessment, we had been quote unquote violating the Constitution in terms of providing a quality, equal education K through 12. Right? Basically, they said they don't think it's fair that different districts are getting different money, and that discrepancy has gotten too wide. And the court said you have to reassess. In order to, part of what you need to do to address that is to reassess the property. I think that's nonsense. I'm not a lawyer, but I've been reading laws for a little while now. I have a pretty good knowledge of our Constitution. I think it's nonsense. I just could not disagree more for the judge. In fact, who by the way, he's not a bad guy, but I actually voted against his renomination because I think it was judicial activism. I don't know how else to say that, and in Delaware we've been very blessed that we have not had a lot of judicial activism, but I think this was pure judicial activism. I think this chancellor decided that he wanted a certain policy and that he pushed that policy. And my answer to that is, if you want to raise taxes on people, if you want to pass laws, come down to the General Assembly and run for office.
Well, that's actually a good point, because once the reassessments are over and the property taxes, presumably for the vast majority of Delawareans, particularly those in the retirement communities and around the beach areas, it's going to be a property tax increase.
Significant.
Not passed by the General Assembly, not passed via referendum,
right?
But
by fiat,
judge.
By judicial fiat, basically. Yeah. And it's tremendously concerning. Now, lots of folks say, "Oh, it's not going to be that bad because there's limits on it," and some folks are going to have lower. First of all, they would not have brought the suit if they thought it was going to actually lead to less money, right? Obviously, they want more money in the system. That's the point. But I'm very concerned that currently the law states that we have a 10% limit on when the reassessment happens. Rates can only go up a maximum of 10%. Which, by the way, 10% is not trivial, right? That's a big number. But the way I read it is that it can go up 10% every reassessment. They're going to be reassessing on a regular basis, which means that it could go 10% every time it's reassessed. And they could reassess as quickly as every 2 or 3 years. So our constituents who are out there, and one of the reasons that Delaware is such a great place to live is low property taxes, they could be looking at very significant property tax increases. And I'm to apologize, you're exactly right. I do feel very passionate about this, and I'm getting all worked up. But I think it's a political firestorm going to happen, and I think that we need to be honest with our constituents and say, look, this could be a very significant increase in your property taxes moving forward, and I know I and my colleagues are working on trying to stop that.
Well, Senator, I always appreciate the discussions
No, and
that we have.
I'm chatty, and I'm a passionate guy, and man, I thanks so much for having us.
Well, I know I enjoyed the insight that you provide. I know their constituents do as well.
Well, it's nice. It's kind of you to say, and I'll tell you, I'm obviously biased, but I think the Republican caucus and in the Senate is doing a really good job. I think we have a good group of folks, and I think we're really making some good progress. And part of progress, by the way, is stopping bad stuff. Right, and I think we've been pretty successful in making things less bad and actually stopping some things. So I'm really proud of our efforts.
You've been an integral part of that.
Well, I've tried. I give it the old college try.
Well, Senator Bonini, thank you for joining me today.
No, Matt, thank you.
And well, thank you for checking out another video. The first, we got 2 more weeks after this of the General Assembly, and then it'd be Joint Finance markup. Bond bill is going to be meeting again over the next 3 or 4 weeks to finalize, which you're a member of.
Yep.
So we'll be keeping you up to date on that as well. But in the meantime, sign up for Senator Bonini's newsletter, social media pages. Check us out at Delawaresenate.com. And until next time, Senator.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And see you next time. Thank you.